Hello and welcome to Coffee and Calm with Amanda. Real talk for homeschool moms who crave coffee, peace, and permission to break the rules. I'm your host, Amanda Schenkenberger, second generation homeschooler, mom to four boys, and author of the book Overwhelmed. And this show is all about creating space for you to breathe deep, laugh a little, and find real encouragement for your homeschool journey. Today, I have a guest I know you are going to love. Her name is Teresa Wiedrick. She is a certified life coach for homeschool moms, and she's all about helping overwhelmed homeschool moms lead with confidence, clarity, and presence, so it feels aligned inside and out. She carries wisdom with every word, and I know what she's going to share with us today is going to help many of you moms navigate your experience as a homeschool mom. So, would you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, Teresa?
It's lovely to meet everybody and always lovely to spend time with you, Amanda. I love hearing your story, and it was wild when we first connected. I think it was 2020 or something. And our stories are resonant because this is a common conversation for many moms. I don't feel good enough. I'm not sure I'm doing this right enough. I don't feel comfortable doing things out of the box. So,
Mhm.
for my story, I homeschooled four kids over almost 2 decades. So, my youngest is almost 17 now, about to launch. I'm about to go on a college tour with him. The wildest thing ever moving into that phase of life, where your youngest is going to grow up, apparently. They do that. But I can remember certain moments in my journey that felt overwhelming. Everything from the first year where I felt like I was never going to get sleep again to one moment I share in my homeschool journey is about the third or fourth year, and I'll share a little bit more about that. I point to that conversation because it's so resonant for a lot of people, but I've had many moments of overwhelm, including, as you were sharing, moving into the high school years and wondering if I could really re-up myself, really commit to doing something on that level. And then I would say even into the 20 something years where it feels like a whole different game. It feels more like a coaching client, but with somebody that I deeply care about, that I birthed and I want the best for in their lives. Everything they do matters. And I also have to learn how to allow them just to be. So I've got these stories across the spectrum, but the one in my third to fourth year is what I call my hitting the wall moment, where I think it was slump month. I don't know what it's
Oh,
like in
that's
Oregon, but
great.
it's just gray. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so in northern BC, we were traveling and I'm with my four kids in a new place, new home. I remember feeling gray. And I had a coffee mug on my bedside table. There was, coffee rings on the base. It was cool. It was sloshed all over. And yet I was waking up to hear the kids already up making something in the kitchen and probably helping each other, but I could hear fighting. And I'm like, oh, okay, here's how the day's starting. I didn't get up before the kids. Maybe I was premenstrual, maybe I'd had an argument with my husband, maybe it was just February, but it just
Mhm.
felt yuck. And I remember just feeling agitated as I walked into the kitchen and I see the kids fighting over the spatula and there's pancake drops all over the floor and the counter. And I remember getting really just, "Ah, okay, enough. Okay, everybody just go to the kitchen. I'll clean this up. I'll get the pancakes." I didn't notice that they were taking care of each other and doing things for each other. I was just agitated. So I remember finally getting myself together and saying, okay, this is good. This is not a bad thing. And then moving to morning read aloud. And we're all finding a place to seat or to sit. And two of the kids are playing happily with Legos, and two of the kids are fighting over the seat beside me. And I am just like, okay, that's enough. I didn't have the bandwidth in here to deal with these really tiny moments. And I remember leaving the room because I thought someone was getting too heated and it was me. So I walked out of the room and to go into my bedroom and find a way to calm down. At the time, I didn't know what emotional regulation was. And
It wasn't a thing
it
then.
wasn't a thing. It wasn't even a thing. Self-care wasn't even a conversation. Um, so then I moved into the bedroom. I tried calling my husband who wasn't available. Then I called my friend and she said, "Hey, have you heard this? Brené Brown TEDx talk or this YouTube video. It's going viral from yesterday. And I don't know who this is. And I watch it. And all I remember thinking at the time was, I so resonate with her. I have no idea what my needs are or why I even am frustrated or what I want in life, nothing. And that was a moment, like a really big moment for me to begin to understand or uncover what was really going on in here. And so I would say that that was a really pivotal moment for me.
Yeah, I love Brene Brown. I think so if there's a mom listening and she's like, I don't know who Brene Brown is, would you enlighten us?
Yeah, I mean, as I understood, she was a woman with these big black shoes and a jean jacket and a, cute blonde coif. And she was talking about shame and vulnerability and things that were very uncomfortable in my mental lexicon at the time. But she talks about the myths of imperfection, really living a wholehearted life. And not coincidentally, this is for the next 3 months what I'm going to be studying in our Confident Homeschool Mom Collective. We've already done guideposts 1 to 3. Partly because I think she's such a good lightning rod for getting clear on who you are, what you care about, what really matters, but also coming to terms with our shame stories that
Mm,
often fuel the reason that we don't feel good enough or the reason that we want everything to be perfect. And that our real challenge is not about homeschooling at all. It's about this shame story.
yeah, and that's really good. And so interesting. When I share, the hard things that I have gone through with homeschooling, I it wasn't even until, probably through the process of writing the book, realizing, oh, these patterns, they weren't brought on by homeschooling. They
Right.
were simply revealed at a deeper level through homeschooling. And
Yeah.
if I'm seeing them with such clarity now, this is my opportunity to heal them.
Yeah. Hmm.
And there is just something realizing that, I see it so often in moms that they're like, okay, I'm not 100% on board with this homeschooling thing. I'm really uncomfortable. We're fighting all the time, or so these kids are fighting all the time. He's not listening, and I just want to put them back in school.
Yeah.
Right. And for moms who are in that space, all of this stuff that's coming up for you, we want to get away from these uncomfortable feelings, like talking about our shames, like stories that bring shame, like that's uncomfortable. Nobody is like, let's talk about my most embarrassing, hardest moment of my life. You
Yeah. Yeah. And I
know?
really am sharing one. And I'm trying to burst the bubble of listen, I'm actually sitting with these women hearing their stories, and everyone feels alone in this. And yet, you are alone if you are not experiencing this ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, you're some kind of robot.
Yeah. I don't know how you did it, but you
That's
really are unusual. Hmm.
Yes. And I think that's key in moms knowing like this inner narrative that we usually keep very close to our hearts. We might, we might share with a friend. We might not, because it takes a lot of courage that when we're in the
Hmm.
thick of being overwhelmed and man, I keep snapping at my kids. Like, I don't want this person to think like I'm a bad mom. I already think I'm a bad mom. I don't need their confirmation of it. And
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe, we get brave enough to share a piece of it. And we're homeschool moms. Somebody runs in the room, hey, mom, I need this, And so it's not easily facilitated, period, like period, but exponentially so if we are only seeing our other mom friends it with our kids around because it's so easy
Mhm.
to be interrupted and it's so hard to be brave. And it makes sense why we feel alone in this because also it's just
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. I mean, we're all busy. That's the other thing, is that
Yeah.
there's so much going on when kids are in your space that you're like, oh no, I'll just keep pushing through. I can do this. I can do this. And it's true, you can. There were seasons, definitely, I did do that. And then every moment where you decide to sign up for personal growth or you decide to tackle this thing that has been an issue for a long time, It's hard. It's not pleasant. It's not pretty, but it's your first step to releasing whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
Mm,
I
coffee.
think that, oh, go ahead. Yes, coffee. Oh, are you drinking coffee? I thought you were a tea drinker.
Mhm. No.
No.
I mean,
Oh,
in the afternoon,
okay.
perimenopause. It's required. Yeah.
Well, oh, I heard recently, not to get too off topic, I heard recently perimenopause referred to as cougar puberty.
Oh, amen. No BS in the room. No, or no BS season, because we
Yeah.
call it. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I
Yes.
love it.
But I won't drink coffee after lunch because then I won't sleep.
Yeah, we don't want that. Okay. Pivoting back, uh, I really do think when it's let's talk about this for a minute because you and I are very much in the same space, and I
Mhm.
think you and I probably see the very same reasons why moms don't step into the opportunity of self growth. And one of the big ones, I feel like it's kind of like two two-sided. One's I don't feel worthy of investing in, and even if I did, I'm afraid it won't work for me.
Yeah. Well, it won't if you think it won't. This I've
Mm,
seen that when people are really leery about something and going, I'm looking for the reasons why it won't. I
mm,
think it's valuable if, like, I know the first experience that I had going into therapy, and I remember thinking, ooh, to do therapy means I failed, or I have something to feel shameful about, or I need to hide. And actually, though that was the feeling I had, as though everybody else has everything figured out, and has no challenging stories and has no reason to go to therapy or coaching. I felt that way, but it wasn't true. And then when I moved toward the space in my life of accepting that actually this personal growth thing or acknowledging that everything isn't easy or I have real challenges in certain areas, that was unlocking the door. But if you're not willing to unlock the door, that's then you just do you. You do whatever you want to do. And I'm guessing you're not here right now. You're not actually listening this far into this conversation. So you're probably willing.
probably willing. And
Yeah.
and that's like as long as you're willing and resourceful, like you're good as a homeschool mom. Like, sure, we're gonna screw up and we're gonna screw up big
Mhm.
sometimes. But as long as we're willing and resourceful, you've got the makings of an amazing homeschool mom.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so, yeah, what would you say to a mom who is open to the conversation, who would want to grow, but has that fear of it's not going to work for me because I'm broken or I won't do it well or something like a story about herself?
Yeah, I wouldn't say something as much as I would be asking more questions, digging deeper as to why. What's the reason you think that? And I
Mm.
would keep going to the deeper, deeper, deeper. And, there was one mom that I'm working with. So, a third conversation that we had, she said, oh, now I see why you don't care about curriculum, that this conversation or our conversations are never about curriculum. It's about this, like what's really going on in here. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. I mean, you could do any curriculum. I will tell you, and I'll just give a teaser. I won't even say what it is, but I have noticed that there is a certain method that elicits more conversations with moms in general, that when they are more structured or more tightly structured, they tend to be more likely to have conversation with me because they are overwhelmed and because they're just trying to get all the check boxes and it's not working. But it isn't about curriculum, and it is always about whatever's going on in here. So to me, I wouldn't actually say something specific. I would just keep asking questions until we got to the root of why not? Why can't you go in this direction of growth?
Yeah.
Why don't you think you can do it?
Yeah. I think that's really good. And I think being able to offer that just even that clarity to somebody is huge.
Mm.
And hopefully at some point not completely removing the obstacles because sometimes we have to climb over these things and we're like, well, I have to do it scared.
Mhm. Mhm.
And move through it. Okay. So what would you say, as far as overwhelm, you said Brené Brown helped you a lot. Just her process. If you could recommend one of her books to somebody, which one would it be?
So many books. You get me pinned down on this one. But I would
Yes.
say probably because I'm focusing on it right now, The Gifts of Imperfection.
Okay.
That one right there. Yeah.
And what about that book do you think meets a homeschool mom's heart where it needs to be met?
It compels her toward wholehearted living or wholehearted existing, and ultimately is addressing that shame story that we were speaking to before, discussing worthiness and wondering why don't you feel worthy?
Mm,
I mean, there's so much to unpack in that. It very much depends on where you're at in the homeschool journey. You know, I'm more likely to have conversations with moms that have been 3 years plus in the homeschool journey. But when I work with homeschool moms that are just entering or they're yet to decide whether they're homeschooling, the conversation is around imposter syndrome and whether or not they really can be this role or they really can embody what they need to make sure that what they offer their kids is enough. And that conversation still, I think, is rooted in this worth issue.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of, she doesn't know what she doesn't know. Also, and
Yeah.
there's an
Hmm.
educational piece, which is like, oh, well, I also understand why we're asking these questions. And so, but I agree. It's like the moms like hit year 2 or 3 and they're like, I, I can't live this way. Like, I can't, like, I'm committed to homeschooling, but I can't go on this way. I've got to do something differently, but I don't know what
Right.
it is.
Then it's time. That's the point. Then yes, do something about it.
Yeah, I
Because
love it.
just imagine, like what is the long-term ramification if you're not doing anything? What
And
is
you,
it
oh,
what
go
is
ahead.
it you're most afraid of? What is
Mm,
the thing that you're like, ooh, at the end of my homeschool days, here is the worst case scenario, or what's the worst case scenario for my child for their sense of direction after homeschooling? And
yeah.
when you look at that, then you say, okay, well, then maybe you need to work backwards and say, okay, what am I going to do about it?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. I know I always tell moms that I'm working with when we get stuck in the weeds, right? Like, but I need to choose the right curriculum or like I've got to get this homeschool flow down. I'm like, okay, whoa. Yes, and
Mm. Yeah.
and what do you want your kids to say at the end of their homeschool journey? And for somebody who had a homeschool journey that
Mhm.
started out wonderful, but ended in a pit, like
Mhm.
it was not a good ending.
Yeah.
And I struggle personally. I'm like, how much do I share? I also want to honor my parents. But it
Mhm.
was bad.
Mhm.
For somebody who had a poor ending to what started as an amazing homeschool journey, um, I can look back now as an adult. Maybe I wouldn't have said the same thing when I was in the midst of it. I probably
Mhm.
wouldn't have even had an opinion. I was so like, had so many emotions. I mean,
Mhm.
teenage girl, right?
Mhm.
My point is, when I look back and I thought back on my own homeschooling experience, I remembered the moments of connection.
Mhm.
I remembered my dad teaching me how to read. I
Mhm.
remember horseback riding with my mom. I remember crying through math
Mhm.
every single time.
Mhm.
You know, and that's okay. I still am not friendly with math, but I do it, because it's part of being an adult. And I'm able to sit and be like, well, if what I remember were these special moments of connection, that's the legacy I want to leave for my kids.
Mhm.
It was like some of it was learning, like my dad teaching me how to read, and some
Mhm.
of it was play, going on horseback rides with my family. And so that is the legacy I know I want to leave. And when I work back and I think about that big picture, when I'm in the middle of arguing over like getting math done, there's
Mhm.
issues over math in my house for me.
Mhm.
Um, I know, I'm like, you know what? We can drop this
Mhm.
because what I want to leave is this legacy of connection.
Mhm.
And connection doesn't mean avoiding uncomfortable situations, but it does mean
Yeah.
I value where you're at in this moment, and
Mhm.
you matter more than getting the curriculum done.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to leave my kids. And so I feel like for that question, I have that perspective being homeschooled, but as long as you figure out what your vision word is for homeschooling,
Mhm.
you can do that same reverse process. And that, having coached hundreds of moms at this point, that is a game changer. When you
Yeah.
know where you want to go, that redirects you like a lighthouse in the middle of the
Yeah. Yeah, that connection piece, that is not an overrated conversation. You hear everybody speaking to it, and you know in your soul, like of all the things you want for your kids, it's not to figure out how to multiply fractions or calculus or something. Although two of my kids love it and were trying to convince me in the last couple of weeks that, Mom, it's really not that hard. It's very much like a different way of framing math. You just have to know all the basics first. I'm like, for so many reasons, this is probably not happening in my lifestyle or my life. But I think it's amusing that I birth children that think that way.
fabulous.
Yes, yes, it's pretty wild. But when I look at those specific moments of real frustration, because I remember having certain ones with kids too, that pushing, which is or was my compelling at a certain point, that I was doing it because I was afraid that I
Mhm.
wasn't going to get something accomplished for them, or there would be a gap, or they would be behind, or what would happen if they couldn't get into college because they didn't have whatever, whatever. And now that I've got the hindsight, I can see, you know what also happens if a kid, I've watched this with a few kids, including me, if you include me as the kid, when you didn't have a certain level of math or chemistry, I'll just use myself as an example. I didn't before I went into my Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And they said, well, we have really enjoyed having a conversation with you. We see you're motivated to move into this phase of your life and the reasons you're motivated for that. So we want to open a space for you. We need you to either choose grade 12 chemistry or math for your first year of sciences and somehow accomplish that within your first year of 4 years. And I said, okay. But I was willing and I did really well because I was motivated. So I think there's a lot of fear around various topics. Math is often one, but different conversation points where actually your child can accomplish something later in the future. And so it isn't just K to 12 or until they're 18 that you have a timeline to fix everything and figure things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so good because sometimes I think a lot, and this it can happen a lot in the younger years, like, oh, we're gonna miss something foundational, and
Mm.
then later on they're gonna be, for the lack of a better word, screwed.
Hmm. Yep.
And that's not the case. And I know that because that's my life experience.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
a lot through the unschooling method that my parents didn't do.
Mm.
And some of it I do regret. I'm like, oh, I wish they would have focused more on this. And I make sure to cover those with my own kids because I
Mhm.
know what it's like to go out and get that skill hard won. Like,
Right.
yes, I wrote a book,
Yeah.
but I could not write a paragraph when I entered
Mm.
high school. So, yes, I did this, but it was hard and I want it to be easier for my kids. And so, I do certain things a certain way. But just because they don't learn it when they're young doesn't mean they can't learn it when they're older. And again, with the motivation, well, I wanted to write a book, so I figured
Exactly.
it out.
Well done, Amanda, by the way. That I know what that is like, and that is not an easy task. So well done. Yeah, really. That is quite remarkable. So how long did it take you to write the first draft?
That actually was, I think it was, might have been 3 months.
Yeah, that was me too, 3 months. And then the
Oh
second and third draft were like 7 months, 1 year, 2 years. You're like, okay.
gosh.
Yeah.
That
Lots of
the
editing.
editing,
Yeah.
not my favorite. I am
Hmm.
not like a super intent, like look at all the details person. It's
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally exhausting.
Yes, it really is. Yeah, yeah, I actually like words now, but I'm with you, Amanda. When I was in K to 12, I had zero interest. I actually had a conversation with Julie Bogart in the last 2 weeks about this that is also, discussing this conversation point that when I was in high school, I had zero interest in writing. And yet, as soon as I went home, I was writing. So you
Mm.
you can really clamp down on a kid's motivation if you're
Yeah.
forcing them into a topic that you just don't care about. And though I appreciate Shakespeare now, I did not understand why I was analyzing the three witches sitting around the cauldron in Macbeth doing their little chants. I was like, I don't care. I don't want to do this. And then it turns out my grade 11 teacher had to go on leave, and there was a sub that came in that didn't know how to engage it. So then I didn't care, but yet I went home and I wrote. Go figure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really, also a really, like we could go off on a tangent about tapping in to that intrinsic motivation. Because in
Amen.
high school, I remember, I'll tell one quick story and then we can wrap it up because I know we could talk all day.
We should do this again.
Good.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember in high school, so again, I'm not a strong writer. And I remember freshman year, I sat down with my English teacher and he's like, "So, what do you think about your essay?" And I was like, "I think it's really corny." He's like, "Yeah." So he was wonderful in helping build my confidence. But then I
Mhm.
went into a sophomore high school, sophomore English, and we got a little bit of freedom about what
Mhm.
we got to write about.
It's,
And
yeah.
I was so elated. Our teacher, she put up some ideas on the board. She's like, or you can pick your own topic, but I have to approve it. And I was absolutely in love with my Spanish class. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
eating it up, culture, all these things. And I went, "Mrs. Asher, can I write about Mexican Catholicism?" And she, is that different from regular Catholicism? And I said, "Oh yes." And then da 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 da. She's like, "Okay, just cite your sources." And I don't remember what I wrote in that essay, but I remember going to the library and like opening these old books and smelling these old books and like putting, learning citation. And I loved writing
Mhm.
that essay because it tapped in to what I was excited about.
Mhm.
And it made a huge difference. I don't know what grade I got, but I just remember that experience. And
Oh, I love that. Hopefully, your parents gave you a trip to Mexico to do some deep research.
I
Just
did go to Mexico shortly
did you?
within
I
a
love it.
year for a missions trip.
Nice.
But yeah, oh man, that just lit me up as
Mhm.
a young writer. And so I 100% agree about the intrinsic motivation. So
Mhm.
again, we could continue this conversation for a long time, but if moms are really enjoying what you're sharing, your approach with weaving in Brené Brown into homeschooling, where can moms learn more about you?
Well, you're welcome to sign up for a free homeschool or aligned homeschool reset conversation, which you can find on my website that I started way back in my early homeschool days. And I called it exactly, I'll give you the name. The name reflects what I really hoped for my homeschool, for my life at the time. It is Capturing the Charmed Life. And I learned that you can indeed turn your challenges into charms, but there is no perfectly charmed homeschool life either.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll link that in the show notes so moms can go get that. And if they wanted to follow you anywhere, where was the best place for them to go and find you?
I wish I could say join me for coffee in my local small town. That would be my ideal. But I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, Homeschool Life Coach. Probably that's the easiest place. Just DM me, say hi, because I am on the other side here, a real person that really will engage you, like a real homeschool mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Teresa's great. She loves her community well. I
Yeah,
am so honored to have you here. Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be working in this community with you.